Hello everyone, this is Stephanie. Welcome to another video. So today we're going to work on this pendant, and this pendant is using some of the beads from Eureka Crystal Beads' latest collection called Mystic Tides Beads Collection. And I absolutely adore these colors. I pulled out the picture from the collection, and I just think they're just lovely sunset colors. I love these chatons. Look at the sparkle on those. They're gorgeous. Here it is in another colorway. I also have a bracelet that I'm working on for you, so this will be coming up very soon. So I will, I'll check and see if the collection is still available, and I'll link it below if it is. Everything else is, linked individually anyway in the description box below the video. So I'm going to clear this off. We'll get a materials list going, and we'll get started. Get a materials list going. So you'll need some 8mm chatons. Now I'm using these. I don't have any more in front of me, but this is from my stash. This is the actual color from the collection, which is so gorgeous. But I used them. I used 4 out of the 6. So here we go. So 8mm chatons. Look at this gorgeous 6mm fire polish. I love that. It looks like a stone, doesn't it? Then you'll need some 15-0s, 11-0s, and 8-0s. So here, there's a mix in the collection called the Mystic Tides Mix, and I just picked out beads from there. But what I'll do is the beads I picked, I will put the numbers in the description box below the video. So if you want those, you can look for those. Otherwise, just grab your mix. We need a 3mm bicone. There's, again, mix in the collection. I just pulled out the 3mm from that mix. Okay, you'll need some half telas. You'll need another 11-0 seed bead. So these are in the collection. You need a Toho treasure. That's in the collection. So everything so far has been in the collection, except this one. So I have a 6mm bugle bead, and this is just an example. It's a silver one that I had. And that's for putting some structure on the back of the pendant. So that is not in the collection. You'll need a size 11 and 12 beading needle, and I'm using 6-pound fire line in the black satin. You can use regular 6-pound fire line. And I have a ribbon. Here, I'll link the ribbons in the description box as well. It's beautiful, beautiful ribbons. These ribbons, I think, so here's the one we're going to make on the video, because I didn't have all the colors to reproduce this one. So I just pulled some beads from my stash. However, these beautiful ribbons, I think they give the piece like a little bit of a less formal look. Because it's a good size, and it's got like crystals and all. So I think when you put it on a ribbon, it just, you can just wear it with a button-down shirt, like maybe a white linen button-down shirt opened, and a pair of jeans, some, a nice bracelet that you made, maybe the one that goes with this. And then you're good to go. And then if you want, you can dress it up with a beautiful velvet blazer and, and all the, that sort of thing if you want to, get dressy. All right. Let's get started. So thread your needle with about 30 inches of thread, put on a stop bead, and leave enough of a tail to sew in. So I picked up and dropped down to my stop bead a half tela and 2 11-0s, and I did that 4 times. Just like so. I'm going to sew them into a circle by sewing through the first bead after my stop bead, which is this tela. Then I'm just going to sew all the way around to reinforce my beads. I've sewn all the way around to reinforce, and I've actually passed the stop bead, and I've just, by a bit, because, I just want to complete the circle, and I'm exiting the bottom hole of a half tela. Just going to sew through the top hole, and at this point I'm always holding it because you can pull it out of shape. I mean, you can also tie a knot if you, when you originally come around, if you like. Some people like to knot, but I'm just do it this way. So I'm exiting the top hole of a half tela. Okay, so I'm going to pick up an 11-0, a half tela, and an 11-0. And I didn't mention earlier that if you haven't used telas before, there's kind of a, let me give you a look here. So there's kind of a rounded side and then a flat side. So the rounded side is, the upside. So you can always keep it that way if you like. Often I forget, and it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't think, let's see, where's my sometimes I can't even tell. Okay, it is on the rounded side. So, I just would always try and pick them up that way. So I've picked up 11-0 Tila 11-0. I'm going to sew through the, I'm exiting this top hole of this Tila. I'm going to sew through the top hole of the next one. Like that. Do that again. 11-0. Half Tila 11-0. Exiting here. I'm going to sew through the top hole of the next Tila. Or half Tila. This is what it looks like so far. You can do that 2 more times. Last 11-0 half Tila 11-0, exiting here. Just sew the top through the top hole of this one, and then I'm going to continue on, and I'm going to come all the way around again just to reinforce this round of beads. Let me move that out of the way. I'll show you what it's going to look like. It's going to curve in a little bit. So I'm just going to meet you back here after you reinforce. This is what I have so far. I've come all the way around to reinforce, and I've made it curve up a little bit just by putting my thumb in. Well, giving it just a little pull. Doesn't have to be tight. So I want you to exit one of the interior Tilas right here. So you remember we went around, you know, we came all the way around. Just exit one of the Tilas that are in the interior right here. Okay, so I'm going to pick up an 11-0, a Toho Treasure and an 11-0, and I'm just going to skip everything until I get to the next interior Tila, and I'm going to sew through that one. Just make sure those beads pop in front of that Tila. They kind of like to go in the back. Let me pop that over. There we go. I'll make sure it pops over just like so. 11-0, Toho Treasure 11-0, exiting the interior Tila right here. I'm just going to hop over to this one, put those on. So just like that, that's how that's going to sit. It's a little clumsy at first, but once we get the stone in, it'll tighten up. So here we go. So you have these 2 groups on. Do that 2 more times. So before I put on my last 11-0 Toho Treasure 11-0, I pop my stone and just want to, you know, sit it down properly. It should go right in there. So here is my last group. I'm going to sew through this Tila. Get that guy on. This is what it looks like so far. I'm just going to advance my needle through the next 11-0 Toho Treasure 11-0. This is what it looks like. Okay, we're exiting the 11-0 Treasure 11-0. I'm going to pick up 2 15-0s and sew through that next group of 3 seed beads. So the 11-0, the Treasure, and the 11-0. That'll pull. And again, exiting here, I'm going to pick up 2 15-0s. I'm going to sew through these, the next 3 beads here. So you're just kind of closing the circle a bit. So you can do that 2 more times and then go around again and reinforce. Okay, so I've come around. Actually did it a couple of times just to get it nice and snug. So this is what it looks like. So you'll be exiting the 11-0 right before a delica. So any one of them right before a delica. So just like some right here. Now I'm just going to take my needle and I'm going to just reverse direction, and I'm going to sew through these 3 beads under that group right there. See that? Like that. This is where I'm exiting this 11-0 right here before the Tila. I'm going to pick up 2 11-0s, and I'm exiting the 11-0. I'm going to sew through the top hole of the Tila. I'm going to pick up 2 11-0s. Exiting here, I'm going to sew through this 11-0 Tila 11-0. Just like so. And we're just, you know, putting the 11-0s around the Tila. Do that again. 2 11-0s through the top hole of the next Tila. 2 11-0s through the 11-0 Tila right there, and the 11-0. You got it. You can do that 2 more times. Okay, last 2 11-0s. Exiting here, I'm going to sew through these 3. So the 11-0, Tila 11-0. Just like that. We're going to add an 8-0. So I'm exiting this 11-0 right here. I'm going to pick up my 8-0, and I'm going to sew through the 11-0 Tila 11-0 in the next group right here. So just from here to here. That's going to place that little 8-0. It's just going to sit right on top of that tila. Do that again, 8-0, exiting here. I'm going to sew through this 11-0, tila 11-0. It's going to sit like that. So do that 2 more times. Last 8-0, exiting this 11-0. I'm going to sew through the 11-0, tila 11-0, and that's going to place that last 8-0 on, and this is what it looks like. So this is the unit. So you're going to sew your tail thread in, sew your working thread in, and then we'll put on a new thread to attach the units together. So you're going to make 4 all together, and then we'll attach. So I've put it out to demonstrate because I think it's just easier rather than having them flop all over the place. So situate your units like so. You're going to thread your needle with about 30 inches of thread, put on a stop bead around the middle because we're going to use both threads, both ends. So I've sewn through the 11-0 tila, half tila 11-0 on one unit. So see, just like that. And then I've just, no beads on my needle, just sewing through the next 11-0 half tila 11-0 through the 11-0 half tila 11-0 on this one, and then the last one. And then I'm just going to connect them all by sewing back through the very first 11-0 tila half tila 11-0 that I put on. This is what it looks like. So you just want to, just want to tighten it up just like so. What we're going to do next is I'm exiting the 11-0 right here, and here's the next 11-0. I'm going to pick up a 15-0, and I'm just going to put it in between these two. So I'm just going to pick up a 15-0 and sew through the next 11-0 half tila 11-0. Like that. And do that again. Like so. Again, just exiting the 11-0. I'm going to sew through the next 11-0, half tila 11-0. Just like that. And then one more through this 11-0, tila 11-0. Just to get all 4 of the 15-0s there. And you see how that kind of gives it a little bit of structure and straightens things out a little bit. This is what it looks like so far. This is where we are so far. So we still have that other thread there. Don't worry about that. We'll get to that. We're still with the working thread. So you'll be exiting one of the 11-0s. You know, you came through the 11-0 half tila 11-0. So we're just going to put a 15-0 right here. So I'm going to, exiting here, I'm just going to sew through this 11-0 right here. The 11-0 tila 11-0. Like so. Change your needle size if you need to. I'm still on an 11, but you can go to a 12 here. And exiting the 11-0, I'm going to sew up through these 2 11-0s. Then we're going to pick up a 15-0. And we're going to sew down through these 2 11-0s right here on the other side, just to connect that 15-0. So just like that. And then we're just going to snake our way around till we get to another corner. So I'm just going to sew through the next 11-0 tila 11-0. Let's see if we can do this efficiently. So we're exiting that 11-0. Okay, this works. And we can go through this 11-0, the next 11-0, like so, through the tila and the 11-0. Oh, that works. Like that. Just gonna turn it this way. Through these 2. Or yeah, just actually go through the 1 11-0. I'm kind of using the thread path the way I put them on. So when I put these on, I put the 11-0 tila 11-0, so it's easier to go through those rather than try to group them all together and go through them all at once. So see, just like that. and then through these two, like so, and then picking up a 15-0, sewing through the next two 11-0s, through the 11-0, Tila 11-0. See where we're headed. Down through this 11-0. I caught, just want to, I think I am. Let's see. Yes, be careful, don't get caught on your beads. So here, across, through the 11-0, Tila 11-0. See, we're just moving around to the next spot, like that. And then, you know, we're exiting this 11-0. You're just going to do the same thing. Go through everything here, put on your 15-0, go through down through all of these beads, through this again, these, you know, through all of these beads, up again, and put your last 15-0 on. Okay, so I'll let you go ahead and do that, and then we'll continue. Adding my last 15-0, sewing through these two, just like so, and then I'm going to go down the 11-0, Tila 11-0. This is where I am so far. This is what I have so far. So I'm exiting, you know, I put my last 15-0 on. I came through here, through these two 11-0s, then this 11-0, Tila 11-0. So I'm exiting that interior 11-0 right there. I'm just going to sew right through this 8-0. So you'll be exiting the 8-0. So I'm exiting this 8-0. I'm going to pick up my 6mm fire polish. So my thread is coming out here. I want the thread going like so, because we're going to connect at both ends. Then I'm going to go back through here, through the 6mm, and then through this 8-0. So I have, you know, I have it kind of looped around like so. So that's how it looks. Don't worry, we're going to get it all covered and complete. So this is what we have so far. We're exiting the 8-0 up at the top here. I'm going to pick up my other 11-0, a 3mm bicone, and the other, you know, and an 11-0, you know, in the other color. I'm just going to pop those in right there. 11-0, 3mm bicone, 11-0. Going to go through the 8-0, 11-0, 3mm bicone, 11-0, the next 8-0, one more time, 11-0, 3mm bicone, 11-0, through this one, through the original one. This is what it looks like so far. I'm just going to advance my needle a little bit through the 11-0, bicone, 11-0, 8-0, sort of reinforcing here a little bit. So you could just come all the way around. Don't pull too tight. We're going to put some more beads on, so don't worry about it if it's, you know, if it's not hugging the bead as much as you think it should. So here, we're going to come all the way around. I'm going to exit one of the bicones, like so. There you go. That's what it looks like so far. I'm going to pick up 3 of the 11-0s. So this is the, you know, the sort of mauvey color. Exiting this bicone, I'm just going to sew through the next bicone. 3 11-0s. Exiting this bicone, I'm going to sew through the next one. 3 11-0s through the next bicone, push them over a little bit, 3 11-0s through the last bicone, there we go, like so. And now we're going to reinforce this. We're going to sew through the the next 3 11-ohs. I'm going to skip the bicone. I'm going to sew through the next 3 11-ohs. It's just going to tighten it up a little bit. Stuck. There we go. Oops. Look at that. Come on, you. There we go. Oh, you know what I did? Oh, that's interesting. Let me pop out through back through these. I'll just leave it in. Actually, went through this 8-0 for some reason. All right, so we're exiting the 3 11-ohs. We're just going to skip the bicone. Sew through the next 3 11-ohs. Sometimes it's good to leave your mistakes in, just so you know, even the designer, gets caught on beads and makes mistakes, etc. Okay, just going through all the 11-ohs again, skipping the bicones. Just till that sort of snugs up a little bit. There we go. All right, so here we go. This is what the front looks like so far. And I think, are we done with the front? I think we are done with the front. All right, so now we're going to work a little bit on the back. So at this point, you can sew this thread in, and then we'll work with the other thread. Okay, so we have a little bit more to do before we can wear a pendant. So we're done with the front. We're going to do some little work on the back, and then we're going to add a picot around the front. So I'm going to turn it over, and I've threaded my needle with the tail thread. Remember, we left half the thread. Next thing, this 11-0 here. So I just want to get to the top hole of one of these interior tilas. So however you want to get there, I'm going to sew through this 11-0. So I'm just, from this one, I'm just going to sew through the top hole of this tila. If you didn't use your, if you didn't have the tail thread, you can always add a thread and just come through one of the tilas here. So I'm just exiting the top hole of one of the tilas right on the back, right here. I got my bugle bead. This is a 6mm slender bugle bead. You can use a regular 6mm bugle bead. I'm going to sew through the top hole of that next interior tila, just like that. I'm just going to do that all the way around. So just going through the top hole of each one. And that's gonna sort of begin the back structure. So already that feels so much better. So I've just come through the last half tila. I'm going to advance right through that first bugle bead that I put on. So just like that, I've got 4 bugle beads on it. Already seems, it's already nice and sturdy. I'm going to pick up 3 11-ohs, exiting this bugle. I'm just going to sew through the next bugle. I'm just going to do that all the way around, putting 3 11-ohs in between the bugle beads. Last 3. Just like so. So now I have 3 11-ohs in between the bugles. Okay, next up I'm going to sew through the first 2 11-ohs that I put on. I'm going to pick up a bugle and I'm going to sew through this half tila right here. So when I put that on, it's going to give me a little structure on this side. Then I'm going to advance my needle through the next 2 11-ohs. And the bugle on the tila, and then I'm going to pick up another bugle bead and sew through that middle bead right there. And so now I have a little structure right here. I'm going to advance my needle through the next 11-0 and bugle bead, and I just want to come out that middle bead again. So through the 11-0 and the next 11-0, so that top 11-0 like so. I'm going to pick up a bugle. I'm going to sew through this half tila. And if I call it a full tila, if I just call it a tila, we're only working with half tilas here. So whether I call it a tila or a half tila, it's a half tila. Okay. All right. So then here, came through here, through the 2 11-0s and the half tila, picking up my bugle, going through that middle bead again, right there, to put a little bit of, oops, there we go, like so. And you're just going to continue on with the last 2. So through the 11-0 at the bottom there, the bugle bead and the 2 11-0s. So exiting that middle 11-0 there, picking up my bugle bead, sewing through this half tila, the 2 11-0s and the next half tila, bugle bead through the middle 11-0, and you got it. And then you're just going to, so actually, have we done them all? Oh, no, you're going to do one more right here. So, you know, just advance through, put on your bugle beads, etc., and get that last little bit embellished there, and then we'll continue. Last bugle bead, it's like so, and now you can just, you know, you can continue on and just reinforce. Just be careful with the bugles, because bugle beads are, I think they're rather delicate. So here, I just came through again, and then you could just sew this thread in. So if you don't want to put too much thread through the bugle beads, then, you know, they don't bend. So you want to make sure, you know, that you're not pushing too hard on them. So just like that, and then you could just sew your thread in, and now we have a little bit of structure on the back, and it just, you know, it just, I don't know, to me it just makes it a little more rigid. It lays nicely, and it's not gonna, you know, get floppy or anything. All right, so there we go. So next up, so you're gonna sew this thread in. Next up, we're gonna put on a little embellishment on these corners, and we're almost there. So next up, we're going to put on this little picot, like right here. I've already done it here to show you where we're going. So here, I'm going to add them on here, you know, here, here, and here, and then we've got this little picot in the middle. So you just want to thread your needle with, you know, maybe 2 feet of thread, put on a stop bead, leave enough of a tail to sew in. You want to make sure you're exiting. So let's say this is the top of my piece, right here. So exiting the tila, picking up 3 of my 11-0s, sewing through the other side of the tila, through this 11-0, skip the middle one, sew down through the last one, and then through the tila, give it a pull. You see how that made a really nice picot. Then we're going to sew through these 2 11-0s, the 11-0 half tila 11-0, through these 2 11-0s, through the tila, you know, you can always switch to a smaller needle if you need it, and then through this 15-0, pick up 3 15-0s, so through the other side of the 15-0, through the tila, and if you know, you can go through the 11-0 too if you can't. Okay, there, I just got through the tila. Like that. Okay, from this point, you're just going to work your way around to the next half tila to put this picot on. So I already put it on, but I just want to show you. So you're exiting this tila. I'm going to sew through these 2 11-0s, through the 11-0 tila 11-0, like that. And then up through these 2, like that. So now, and across the tila, like so. Now my needle wanted to go through that 11-0, so I'm just going to go through and I'm going to back out rather than, you know, trying to force it. Okay, so now I'm exiting the top hole of this tila, and I'm going to do the same thing I did starting here, putting on my 11-0s, etc., putting on this picot, sewing through, you know, etc., and you're going to do the same thing all the way around, and then we'll be done and we'll put on the bail. Okay, here we are so far. Now I'm going to put the bail on and we'll be done. So I'm going to turn it on the back, and if if you have some thread left over, you need a bit, you know, to make the bail. So that's why I end things and add a new thread. So I'm just exiting the top hole of the tila that I want to be where the bail, I want to attach my bail. So there's the top. I've come through here, I'm exiting right here. I'm going to pick up 3 of the sort of mauve color 11-0s, and I'm going to sew through these 2 11-0s on the back, like that. I'm going to take 3 of the mauve 11-0s, and I'm going to sew right through that same tila. Change your needle size if you need to. That was a little tough. That was taking a bit of a chance. Then I'm going to go back down these 3 just to reinforce a bit. These 2. And then up these 3 again. Just like that. So now I've got a little bit of a base right there. That's what it looks like. Okay, so I'm exiting right here. I'm going to pick up 2 11-0s. I'm going to sew through this bead right here on the other side. So that's going to be the start of my herringbone. I'm going to pick up 1 11-0. I'm going to sew through this bead, like directly across, and then that first stitch of that first herringbone I put on. So this is what it's going to look like, just like that. Start my herringbone, so I'm exiting this 11-0. I'm going to pick up 2. I'm going to go down this one, and then up these 2 on the other side. Like that. Pick up 2 11-0s, down 1, up 2. And you're going to get caught on these little points every time. So just keep doing that until it's, you know, it's the bail is the size you want, because we're going to connect in the front. So you just want to, you know, to see what if you're putting it on a ribbon, it could be pretty small. If you're putting it on, you know, a round, you know, chain, you know, or something, you know, wider, or something beaded, you might want it larger. I'll count how many herringbone stitches I did and let you know. So just get started on that, and then we'll finish it off in a minute. Just for reference, I put mine on a ribbon. I did about 17 herringbone stitches, you know, before I connected. Well, my herringbone stitches on, and you know, ignore this guy. I already did it, and I wasn't crazy about how the clips came out, so I wanted to make it a little more clear for you. So we're just going to do it again on this side, and we'll just take it out. So here we go. I have my stitches on. I've turned, here's the back, here's the front. I've turned it onto the front. That's where we're going to attach. So we'll just make sure it's going to curve in this direction. I'm just going to sew through. See that? See, here's the little 3 bead picot right here. Let me pull in a little bit more. Okay. So here's the 3 bead picot. We're going to sew through the end bead of that picot right there. No beads on my needle right now. And then I'm going to sew down through these 2 pink beads. So the 2 11-0s on the side there. I'm going to pick up an 11-0, and I'm going to sew through the 8-0. So just like that, pick up another 11-0, and I'm going to sew through. I have to turn it so I can get through the beads. So I'm exiting the 8-0. I have my 11-0. I'm going to sew through these 2, the 2 pink ones, 2 11-0s right there, and then through the end bead of the picot on this side, like that. And then I'm going to sew up through my herringbone right here. So we're going to put one more bead on, but before we do that, you're just going to turn it on the back. You're going to sew all the way down, and you're just going to repeat everything you did on the back. So here, you're going to go through here, 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 and go up through this way until you are coming around on this side, and you'll be exiting the two, actually you'll be exiting this bead. So you come down through everything here, you go through here, and I'll be exiting the 8/0. So reinforced all the way around. You know, I just came down, I just followed my thread path until I came down here and I'm exiting the 8/0. I'm going to pick up an 11/0 and I'm going to sew through that middle picot bead right there. I'm going to pick up another 11/0 and I'm going to sew back through the 8/0, and then I'm just going to come through this 11/0, and at this point you're done. You just want to sew in your threads. I know it was a lot to go around just to put those two beads on, but it really makes a difference. So just sew that in and then come back and we'll finish up. We're done, and I think they came out really pretty, and I love the ribbon. I think when you put something like this on a ribbon, it makes it less formal looking. You know, like you don't have, like you could wear it with a white linen shirt and a pair of jeans with a ribbon, and I think it would look really, really beautiful. So I love this one for fall. Isn't that really beautiful, beautiful colors? And this one I put on a pink ribbon because it's very pink. And don't forget, stay tuned for the bracelet coming up. So I want to thank you so much for being with me. Take care, and I'll see you next time.